The year is 1987. We're at the peak of one of the greatest decades of our time. Action superstars such as Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and Van Damme were the pinnacle of what every little boy wanted to be someday. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a stack of bricks and wanted to break that bottom one like a boss. With all the great man flicks that stemmed from the 80s came a game that embodied the great action films of its time. Contra looks and feels just like an 80s action flick starring what we all felt was Arnold and Stallone. Front flipping and shooting through each level, we go from a jungle predator vibe to feeling like we're blasting through the layer in Aliens. Let's take a deep dive into one of the cult classics of the NES era. That is Contra.
Many gamers hold this near and dear to their hearts for all the nostalgia Contra brings to the table. One of the nostalgic things that carries on even today is the coveted 30 life code up, down, left, right, BA start. The YouTube channel Up, Down, hosted by none other than Xavier Woods, was inspired by the code, hence the name. Merchandising, among other things, reference to the code to this day. For the times, Contra offered fast-paced action that gamers craved. Being able to shoot with different styled guns was a great feature for such a game. Although that's the case, I think we can all agree that the spread shot, aka the spreader, is the go-to gun in the game. Contra has spun off into a multitude of games on almost every console and handheld device created all the way through to the Nintendo Switch. The game had success with an overwhelmingly positive reception not only with the arcade but on the console as well. It has been voted as a top game on many websites that review retro games. During its time, players also voted as Contra being one of the toughest games to beat. Nintendo Power ranked it 7th best among NES games and ranked it as one of the best multiplayer games for the system. A simple plot that begins in 2633 AD, we see Bill Reiser and Lance Bean are sent on a mission to take out the evil Red Falcon that is trying to take over the world. A remarkably simple formula for a plot that continuously worked in video game releases during that era. Pinning bad guys versus good guys, aliens versus the world, or global domination were key elements in action games. A coin-operated arcade game was released February 20th in 1987. The NES version was released in 1988, along with ports for various computer formats. One thing to know about Contra was the ability for the second player to steal lives from player one in order to enter or come back into the game. Lives were represented in the corner of the screen in the shape of medals. And if shooting in 8 directions wasn't enough of an upgrade to a shooter for its times, players were also given the option to crouch and shoot in order to dodge enemy gunfire. There's a total of 8 stages in the game, including 2 pseudo 3D sections also known as the base levels. In the arcade version, there was options to go left or right at the end of each tunnel, whereas on the console version, you just continued on a linear path. The game proved quite difficult to some players as you could die by not only being shot by the enemy, but by just simply touching them. This would create other challenges as weapons upgrades can be taken away upon death. Our weapons upgrades could be found by flying capsules going across the screen. Players would shoot the capsules to then see the weapons upgrade drop to the ground. Now that you've learned the basics of Contra, it's time to take down Red Falcon.